Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well wherever you are. Yes, we've met again today to discuss one important aspect that we don't need to miss in English. This is what we learn in grammar as one of the many aspects we have in English. We are going to talk about the use of unless. I know this is not a new word to you. You've always used unless in your sentences, and you might have also learned about it somewhere. Unless is a conjunction, and you know very well that a conjunction is a joining word. Is a word that we use to join phrases or sentences. Unless is used to say that something can only happen or be true if a particular situation comes to pass. And unless means if not. If not. That means it is a negative word. Unless is a negative word. So when you use it in a sentence, it makes that sentence negative. I want to give some few examples. Example number 1. Unless COVID-19 interrupts our programs, we shall go on with everything. You will realize that once you start a sentence with unless, there's a comma that you apply somewhere there. And where you place the comma is the end of that particular clause, and that clause is an if clause. So you need to have the knowledge of conditional sentences. If you are to go back to conditional sentences, we said there are two clauses, there are two parts in any conditional sentence. We have the if clause and the main clause. So unless as a conjunction affects the if clause. So our emphasis is going to be on the if clause here. Unless COVID-19 interrupts our programs. What does this mean? We said unless means if not. So if I say unless COVID-19 interrupts our programs, I simply mean if COVID-19 doesn't interrupt our programs, then what will happen? We shall go on with everything. So that's what it means. 2, you can also come up with a sentence like this. He will fail the examination unless he works hard. So here, unless has been used within the sentence. We have used unless within the sentence. So when you use it within the sentence, a comma is not needed. A comma is not needed. When I begin my sentence with the unless, I have to place a comma to separate the if clause from the main clause. But when I use unless within the sentence, that means I have to begin my sentence with the main clause. Like our sentence 2 says, he will fail the examination unless he works hard. But our emphasis is on that part of the sentence that has unless. We said unless means if not. So what does it mean when we say unless he works hard? It simply means if he does not work hard. If he doesn't work hard, what will happen? He will fail the examination. That means there is a condition there for one to pass the examination, and that is working hard. So it takes us back to our definition that says that unless is a conjunction used to say that something can only happen or be true in a particular situation. So passing can only happen when the situation of working hard is in place. That is it. You also need to know that when you are presented with two negative sentences and they ask you to use unless, your concern should go straight to the if clause. Because I said earlier, without conditional sentences, it is going to be hard for us to talk about unless also. I'm going to give you one more sentence in negative form. If I don't get money, if I don't get money, I will not buy the car I talked about. I repeat, if I don't get money, I will not buy the car that I talked about. We have two clauses in this sentence. The first clause is an if clause, which is if I don't get money. Then the second clause is what we call the main clause, and that's the result. I will not buy the car that I talked about. So they want us to use unless in this sentence. So what are we going to do? As I earlier on told you that unless affects the if clause, we are going to leave the main clause aside and concentrate and do our things just within the if clause. If I don't get the money, if I don't get the money, we are bringing unless that side, and that is the if clause we are talking about. If I don't get the money. So putting unless in that particular clause will make us to remove if and that not, which is hiding on the helping verb don't. That is do, then when you add not, it becomes do not, and the contraction is don't. And you must not use unless and then bring if again in the same sentence, because inside unless we have if not. So to bring in unless in that clause, we are going to say unless I get the money, unless I get the money. You know, you have to put a comma there. Why? Because we are beginning our sentence with unless. Then you bring the main clause. I will not buy the car that I told you about unless I get the money, comma, I will not buy the car I told you about. Then you put a full stop there. You can use unless within the sentence. So we are going to change the same sentence. And this time round, it will start with the main clause and we shall end with the if clause. That means the if clause will be within the sentence. I will not buy the car that I told you about unless I get the money. So when you use unless within the sentence, there's no need for you to put a comma. But when you begin the sentence with unless, there must be a comma. And without that comma, your sentence is wrong. We have used unless in a negative sentence. You can also be given a positive sentence. You can also be given a positive sentence. And if they ask you to use unless in that particular sentence, get to know that you are going to make the whole sentence negative. Why are you going to make it negative? You are going to make the sentence negative just because unless is a negative word. It's a negative word. And you know very well that once you use a negative word in a sentence, it makes the whole thing negative. I am going to remove that negative word that made our first sentence negative. If I get the money, I'll buy the car I told you about. This is a positive sentence. If I buy the money, if I get the money, I'll buy the car that I told you about. It's a positive sentence. But they want us to use unless in that very sentence. So what are we going to do? Of course, we are going to make the sentence negative. Why negative? Because unless means if not. So which part of our sentence is going to be affected by unless? It is the if clause. It is the if clause. If I get the money, I will buy the car I told you about. So I'm going to put unless within the if clause. Unless I get the money. What does it mean? If I don't get the money. Unless has already changed our positive if clause to become negative. Remember, the main clause is still positive. So what do we need to do? We need to go and change the main clause also to become negative. Unless I get the money, comma, I will not buy. I will not. So you bring the negative word not to the helping verb will to make it will not. I will not buy the car I told you about. So we have made the whole sentence negative now. So that is how unless is used. You need to make a lot of practice. You need to continue using unless in different sentences. And don't forget that unless is one thing that gives people a hard time. Thank you very much.